All right, everybody. Injuries. Everything was pretty much the same as yesterday, guys that worked and didn't. Tyreek Hill has a hamstring and Okafor has a calf that we're getting looked at. So everything else was the same as yesterday.
Hey, Coach, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We're ready to get started. Let's start with Adam Teicher. Go ahead, Adam. Adam, you got me?
Do now.
There you go.
Hey, Dave, how you doing?
Hey, Adam.
Hey, wanted to ask you about Tommy Townsend. The last time we talked to you, you had 2 punters. Now you've got 1. Why were you so confident in Tommy that he could be your guy? And what have you seen from him since camp started?
Well, we originally saw Tommy at the combine, and Tommy, I felt like he was the best punter at the combine. Had a draftable grade on him. Obviously, he wasn't drafted, so he was a guy that we went after real strong, and those guys did a great job of being able to get him in our building, and I'm really happy with his performance so far. He's done a great job. He's really consistent. He really bombs the ball. He gets the ball off quick. He's athletic. He's everything you're looking for.
Let's go to Matt Derrick. Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, Coach. I'm just curious, with the shortened time frame and the fewer practices that you have, how difficult is it going to be to fit some of the rookies into what you're doing in special teams? And how much do you miss those preseason games, figuring out what they can do under the lights?
Yeah, there's a lot there. I'll tell you, it's going to be real tough for the rookies. I told them on day one that, you have to do it in practice. I mean, you're going to have to really show out in practice. And the guys have been doing a good job of that. And, not having preseason games for those guys, it's tough because that's their resume. That's how they put it out there, exactly what they are, those plays, and they're not going to be able to have that. So it's unfortunate for them. It's a different year. For us, we have to make decisions, and it's going to be tough for us to make those decisions, but they're definitely out there working hard and doing their best.
Let's go to Pete Sweeney. Go ahead, Pete.
Hey, Dave, thanks for taking some time with us. I was curious when it came to the name Justin Shelton Mosley. This isn't someone really we've heard a lot about, and I was wondering if you could just provide some insight as to what you could potentially think he could bring to the return game and just your units as a whole.
Yeah, he's been working as a returner. He's a punt returner, kick returner, and I think right now he's doing very well. I mean, he's as good as all the other guys we've gotten in there, and he's got a good burst, and he's a kid that's out there working hard. And like I said, it's going to be real tough for these guys without the preseason games. You want to see him in a preseason game under the fire of a live kickoff coverage or punt coverage, and they're just not going to be able to get that because we can't resemble that. We can't do that in practice. We try to get as close as we can, but we can't really do it. But he's doing a nice job for us.
Let's go to Seren Petro. Go ahead, Seren.
Coach, a couple things. One, have you had to adjust the time that you're putting into special teams? The fact that the no mini camp, no OTAs, does that mean more time, or because of no mini camps, OTAs is less time, or just the same? And then, you talk about the personnel side of things and how it all works. Is there a different mindset because they're not playing football really anywhere, and guys, you might not be able to just go grab a guy off the street and plug and play in the past. So do you have to maybe back off even more to make sure you keep your team healthy for the season?
Yeah, those are a lot of questions there, but really the first one, I think we don't have less time at all, and we still have the same amount of time that we've always had. In fact, the ramp up period was really good because the ramp up period allowed us to kind of put in what we would normally do during the OTAs and and those things. So that was good time for us, and that be able to teach fundamentals for those young guys is critical. Now we're getting into more of the team and the scheme stuff of it, and now they put all those fundamentals together, and we get to see what kind of football players these guys are. And like I said, it's unfortunate for those guys that there's no preseason games, but we have to do the best we can in the team periods that we have to evaluate these guys and make decisions. Now the other guys are going to have leg up. The guys that we've had before, that are game proven, those guys are going to have leg up, and that's just the way it is.
Let's go to Nate Taylor. Go ahead, Nate.
Hey, Dave. Good to see you. I I have 3 questions for you.
Three.
I know. One, how does Willie Gay look? You mentioned that he would be in the sort of the core 4. There's a couple days where you had Tommy do kickoffs. Just wondering what you think of that, maybe being an option in the regular season. And third, behind McCullough being the primary return guy, who's impressed you so far
Okay.
as being maybe a possibility as a returner?
Yeah. First of all, Willie's doing great. I mean, he's like I said, he will be a 4-phase guy for us starting out. That, as any draft pick would be, they start off as a core special teams player until they're not. If he earns a starting job on defense, we'll have to cut him back. On some of the phases that he's playing. But right now, he's a 4-phase guy, and I'm very, very impressed with his the way he's come along. He's a smart guy, and he's he plays fast. I mean, that's one thing you don't have to say. You don't have to ever tell him to play faster, because he plays as fast as can be, which is a good quality to have in special teams. The other thing you asked about Tommy kicking off. Tommy kicked off that day because we wanted to rest Bucker's leg. I mean, Bucker's our main kickoff guy, but Tommy, like I said, he can do a lot of different things. He can kick off, he can kick field goals. But Bucker is the number one, in my mind, is the best kickoff man in the league. I mean, nobody can hang the ball like Bucker can. He can kick any kick that you ask him to do. So we're not gonna put him on the sideline, that's for sure. But Tommy is somebody that can come in and he can do it all. And we're very pleased with Tommy. What was the other question? The last one.
And lastly, just with obviously McCullough keeping the return job as we know it, who has impressed you behind him so far in camp?
Well, I mean, we still got Demarcus Robinson. I mean, I feel good. He's our number 2 guy, and then we have other guys. Dieter can do it, and Pringle can do it. Really, all the standby guys that we've had before. I mean, those are the guys that I'm looking towards. Again, I mean, if we had preseason games, I'd be getting those other guys ready a lot more. I mean, it's just unfortunate for those guys, and I told them, it's unfortunate you're not going to be able to see those guys in games. So, that's where we stand right now. Is really pretty much the guys that we have in the past, and obviously I can always throw Tyreek back there, when we need a big one.
Looks like we've got 2 more hands up. Let's go Herbie and then finish with Matt Derrick. Go ahead, Herbie.
Hey, Coach, I only have one question for you. As far as Tommy Townsend is concerned, I know you mentioned how he can punt the ball, but I'm curious how the dynamics are going in that 3-man battery between James Winchester and Harrison Butker as far as getting the chemistry down to hold down the snap.
Yeah, that's a great question. I probably should have touched on that. I talked about how strong his leg is and how athletic he is, but I'm gonna tell you what, he's doing a great job with his hands. He's got very soft hands, and he's a natural catcher. It's been so smooth, and I mean, it's a credit to those guys because they worked hard. They were during the off season, they worked together and they did stuff on their own, and they came in here at a high level. They didn't come in here just starting out. So it's a credit to Tommy. It's a credit to Bucker, how much work they did during the off season, to get to this point.
Let's go to Matt Derrick to close it out. Go ahead, Matt.
Coach, on the other extreme from the rookies, you've got a lot of veterans on your special teams coming back.
Yeah.
How much comfort does that give you? And even getting a guy back like this week, like Marcus Kemp, that played really well for you in 18.
Yeah, it does. It gives me a lot of comfort. I'd say right now I think we have 7 4-phase starters, and every one of them played, in the Super Bowl or towards the end of the season. So I'm in pretty good shape there. We got to stay healthy. They all have to make the team. I mean, there's every year they have to make the team. So, I feel pretty good at where we're at, though, with our depth on special teams.
Coach, we appreciate the time today. Thank you.
You got it. Take care.
All right, guys, hang tight, and we'll get you another coach up next year. Try to give you a heads up before they walk in the room who it is. Looks like we've got Coach Melvin coming up here, guys.
Okay.
Hey, Coach, can you hear us okay?
Brad, I can hear you just fine.
All right, well, let's get started here. We'll start with Nate Taylor. Go ahead, Nate.
Hey, Tom, good to see you. I have 2 questions for you. This appears, based on how the reps have gone, to be really beneficial for a guy like Nick to get the amount of experience he's gotten so far. Just what have you seen from camp that he's done well, and what are you hoping to see from an improvement standpoint between now and you guys having the first night opener here in 3 weeks?
Well, I like the fact that you're highlighting that he's getting a lot of reps, and he's done a great job with that. He was with us a year ago, so for him, it's basically just putting data in his hard drive and getting more reps at it, and he's doing a great job with it. He's much better in the passing game down the field. He's pretty good on the end of the line of scrimmage. So we're really happy with the amount of experience he's getting now, especially with the ones to run against the number 1 defense too.
Let's go to Pete Sweeney. Go ahead, Pete.
Hey, Tom, thanks for taking some time. I was curious on the other side of it, what you feel maybe that you lost with Blake that you sort of have to replace with that now. And then with Travis, I was curious at this stage in his career with all that he's done, how do you find ways to challenge him at a camp like this?
Well, the first question there, Blake came in last year as a free agent. So the same thing as Ricky's done this year. And we just brought in, Daniel as well. So it's part of the process. Everybody starts where they're at as opposed to everybody starting at square zero. So we look for improvement from where they're at and where they're going to go, as opposed to have they been here that long. And, Nick's been here for Deion's been here for a year. So those guys understand the offense, and they're taking that next step to figure out not just what we're doing, what the defense is doing, how I can affect them. The young guys then really with Ricky, he's got to come out and figure out what he's doing. Being an experienced route runner, he's done a real nice job with that down the field. And his big thing is just learning what we call it, not necessarily football, but it's just, okay, I've done that route concept, but this is what you call it. Now, how do I fit in? So he's doing a real nice job with that as well. And then Daniel came in. Judy's been here 24 hours, and he was taking reps today, scored a touchdown, and he's doing a great job.
Let's go to Herbie. Go ahead, Herbie.
Hey, Coach, always a pleasure to see you. How you doing?
Doing well, you?
Hey, I'm doing well, thanks. I've got 2 questions here for you. Specific to Nick Keiser, how much was it the plan for him to start off with getting the first team reps alongside Kelsey, especially considering how much 12 personnel you run? And then lastly, with Ricky Seals-Jones hurt and Deion Yelder hurt, how concerned are you with the depth behind the top 3 that you have right now?
Well, really, we roll the guys in as far as you don't have a specific slot that you're playing this time of year. Guys are going to play, if we have the 12 personnel, both of those 2 positions. And just kind of the roles come later when we start the game plan. So everybody getting reps is the big thing, some on the line of scrimmage, some down the field. So we're just looking right now to get people experience against good competition and see how they react and where they're at and how they need to progress from there. So we're pretty happy with the way the group's on, and we just have to, I worry about who's going today and how to fit them in and where we're going to go. And Rick and Coach deal with the guys that aren't here.
Looks like we've got 2 more questions. Let's go Matt and then finish with Adam. Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, Coach, thanks for the time. A lot of people talk about the, quality of blocking tight ends in the league these days. And I'm just curious, one, how important is that still to have those blocking tight ends in Andy's offense, maybe compared to what it used to be years ago? And then, how do you kind of break down the blocking abilities of some of the guys you have?
Well, the game's different than it was years ago. Before the Super Bowl, I was talking with John Runyon, and he was saying, well, the offensive line play is different just because of the way the practices go, the amount of time you have with them, how long you have a guy in a system and all that. So I don't think it's necessarily what the way they used to be. This is where the game is now. So the guys on the end of the line of scrimmage have to be able to do both run and pass in today's game. Some offenses, though, use guys that could be more of a primary blocker type. So just it depends on what your offense is and how they fit in your system. So what we have here, the guys are doing a great job as far as they have to be able to do both. They can't just be a primary blocker, and we cannot survive with a guy that's just a primary route runner. They have to be able to handle both roles.
Well, it looks like Matt covered Adam's question, so we appreciate your time today, Coach.
Okay, we got it. Thanks, man.
Thank you. All right, guys, hang tight, and we'll get you the next coach up.
Way to go, Derek. Nice move. Steal Teicher's question.
I was hoping Matt's cat would ask a question.
Izzy was trying to. She started meowing immediately after you muted me.
All right, guys, looks like we got Coach Heck coming up next. Coach Heck. Hey, Coach, can you hear us okay?
Got you, Brad.
Ted, can we tilt the camera up just a little bit? There we go.
I figured with Coach Heck, we'd move a little bit.
Let's start with Sam McDowell. Go ahead, Sam.
Hey, Coach, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I wanted to ask you about Andrew Wiley. You know, you got to replace both starting guards from last year's Super Bowl team, but how much more comfort do you have in a guy that's been in your system for a couple of years now?
I've been a big fan of Andrews since he got here. The guy shows versatility, toughness, and he's gotten better every year that he's been here. So we've got him working in there at guard. He's off to a good start, along with some other guys. But yeah, he's now a couple of years into our system. He's played a lot of ball for us. So I feel like he's picking up the finer points. But you know, he's off and running and off to a great start.
Let's go to Pete Sweeney. Go ahead, Pete.
Hey, Andy, thanks for taking some time. I was curious with some of the offseason acquisitions like Remmers and Osimile. It seems like you guys almost made a theme to go after these a little bit more denser, powerful offensive linemen. And I wonder if that point of emphasis was intentional or was it just a matter of these guys just being the most talented offensive linemen out there?
Yeah, well, Brett Veach and his staff, of course, always do a great job of bringing us quality football players, guys that are going to be competitive. And the thing I love about these two guys is, yeah, they're experienced. They've played a lot of good football, and both of them love football. I think if you said, well, what's the theme here? It's that we're collecting guys that love to play football.
Let's go to Seren Petro. Go ahead, Seren.
Coach, can you give us a update on Eric Fisher, where he is, and then what we're looking at as far as depth, your flexibility maybe with those tackles, and who all would be in that list of guys back behind him if we get to the season and you have problems?
Right. Yeah. Rick's working with Fish. We'll get him back whenever he's ready, and whenever that is, he's working there at the left tackle spot. We've got some young guys working at the tackle spot. And Greg Sinat and Jackson Barton, but we also have other guys that have positional flexibility. That's something I really like to train into, guys, whether they're playing guard or tackle. We're just looking for the best 5, best 7, the guys who are going to make this roster.
Let's go to Nate Taylor. Go ahead, Nate.
Hey, Andy. Good to see you. I have 2 questions for you. So much of offensive lineman is about chemistry and understanding timing and just having reps with one another. When you look at Osimile and Mitchell Schwartz being able to be together, just what have you noticed about those two so far? And the understanding of, it's unfortunate what happened with Eric, but to see Mike Rimmers at the left tackle position to kind of give you an idea of where he needs to work on, just what have you seen from that progress so far?
I think you're right. Definitely you need to build chemistry and trust between O-linemen. I view it maybe a little differently than some, because I feel like, hey, we're all in this rowboat together. We're all, pulling in one direction. We got to get to know every guy in that room, whether I'm playing left guard, right tackle. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm going to be combination blocking with somebody. I need to get to know all these guys. And so I really believe in building versatility and not making a big deal out of that. We have a good group of guys that love to play ball together. Don't flinch when you say, hey, go work over here, go work over there, next man up. That's what I love about this group.
Let's go to Harold Kuntz. Go ahead, Harold.
Hey, Andy, 2 quick questions. I'm just curious. I know you mentioned Osimile earlier, but just go more into how impressed you have been and how he's been able to mesh in with the offensive line throughout his time here. And then also just curious how your son's doing down in Houston and what the conversation's been like with him.
Yeah. Thanks for asking about Charlie. First on Kalechi, I've been very impressed. I mean, here's a guy, I've been a big fan of his, just watching him play, very physical football player. As I mentioned earlier, he's a guy who loves the game. I mean, it's obvious to everyone who watches him. That's infectious, and that's great for our group. He's fitting in terrifically. And then he's off to a good start there in Houston. So, I asked him, maybe give me one play you wanted to have over again. So I just do a little bit of coaching there, but he's got great coaches down there. Looking forward to competing against him. My wife's going to be a little bit nervous, but I'm looking forward to it.
Well, it looks like we got one more question, Coach. Let's go to Herbie to close us out. Go ahead, Herbie.
Hey, Coach, always a pleasure to see you. You mentioned Osimile and Andrew Wiley, and today y'all had practice where you were able to tackle to the ground. Well, not necessarily the offense, but the defense was able to finally tackle to the ground. I'm curious, from where your vantage point, how they did with the physicality of knowing that the defense is coming at them full bore.
Yeah, well, every time we turn on that tape, in fact, we're in the process of evaluating that right now. Those are things we're looking at. And, first impressions, just like always early on in training camp, hey, we've got to get pad level down. We got to get ready. We're going to be, playing for real here in a minute. So that's always a work in progress. We're going to look at that thing and definitely evaluate it. And guys are going to see, oh, geez, man, I thought that felt better than it looked. And usually it's a pad level thing early on in camp.
Coach Hank, we appreciate the time today. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
All right, guys, hang tight, and we'll get you the next coach up here. I believe we've got Coach Daly and Coach McCullough as our final 2 here. I think we're going to try to get Coach McCullough up next. Coach McCullough is coming up.
I can take this off. Yep.
Hey, Coach, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. Let's start with Harold Kuntz. Go ahead, Harold.
Hey, Coach. Hope you're doing well. Two questions for you. One full on and one off. When it comes to on the field, I know Darwin was mentioning yesterday just how the guys shorter in stature have had a little bit harder time learning how to kind of block, and you had to review some film. Just curious to see what you've gone through in the film study room to get those guys ready to go, especially since Clyde is also around the same height. And then also off the field, I know your son's playing high school football in the Kansas area. First, congratulations to him on his commitment. But second, just your overall confidence level as a parent that everybody at the high school level is doing what they can to make sure football is played safely, despite not having the same protocols at the level that the NFL has.
Yeah. First with Darwin and those guys like that. I mean, again, those guys have come back. Darwin has done a great job evaluating himself, really working on the things he needs to work on. And as far as just his stature coming up and attacking guys in pass protection, and that same thing has been universal throughout the room. But the emphasis on the guys with a shorter stature getting up and not letting people get into your body. So we watched some film last night on that, just in preparation for being ready for that when the season comes. As far as my sons and everything are concerned, I mean, I got the ultimate confidence in what the school district over there in Blue Valley is doing. Supreme confidence in Andy Sims and those guys and how they care for their students, student athletes. And I'll definitely will respect whatever decision they make moving forward. But they got some nice protocols in place that me and my family feel confident about.
Go to Herbie Teope. Go ahead, Herbie.
Hey, Coach, you obviously knew what Clyde Edwards-Helaire could do just from watching the tape before the draft. But now that you actually have him in camp, and he seems to come up with an eye-popping move or an eye-popping catch every single day. But what are you seeing out of this kid?
What I'm seeing is somebody who's extremely hardworking, who's he's very hard on himself, and I could be good and bad. I mean, he's somebody who's a perfectionist. He wants to have perfect practices. And, it'd be nice to say you're going to have those, but you're not going to have those all the time. So you need to be able to take the good with the bad, but more in his case, the bad, and move forward. So that's something that we're really working on him with. Hey, you got to just play the next play. But, really been impressed with just his demeanor, his approach to the game, the things he does on the field, and that he will correct himself even if there's something that goes, off the rails. He'll come off and say, man, I was supposed to run this, or I should have looked over the other way. So he's somebody who's constantly self-checking himself.
Let's go to Nate Taylor. Go ahead, Nate.
Hey, Deland, good to see you, man. I have two questions for you. You mentioned the consistency that Daryl had shown last year before his injury. First, I just wonder what are the nuances or the small things that you're noticing with him being in the offense another year that you guys have seen in camp so far? And secondly, for someone like DeAndre Washington, who's kind of having to learn this as quickly as possible, just what has his progression been, given that he's obviously played in the NFL, but he's learning some of the new terminology and just the style of which you guys have practiced so far in camp?
Well, Daryl's been Daryl. I mean, that's the one thing about him. This guy's been consistent to me since day one. Probably you talking about his third training camp, he's probably had 4 errors in all that time. So he's somebody that you can definitely count on to be in the right place and do the right things at all times, and then be able to produce when he has those opportunities. So what he's done is he's become more of a leader in the room, doing things with the whole running back group as far as doing extra conditioning after practice, catching extra balls and different things like that. So trying to make other guys on the same level he is as far as his complete understanding and bringing those guys to the reliability level that he has. DeAndre, he's really come on strong here these last couple of days. In the beginning, I mean, yeah, he's getting his feet underneath him, obviously learning the system, different things like that. But, I mean, he's really been coming on strong. He's a consummate professional, really like him interpersonally. But he's been showing some stuff on the field that we definitely could see helping us this season.
Let's go to Steve Walls. Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, Deland, how you doing?
Right.
Hey, well, talking to Darwin yesterday, he said that last year he was timid and his eyes were wide open, being his first year. After seeing him in camp so far, does it seem like he's more confident, and how has he improved from last year?
I heard from Darwin probably 100 times during this offseason just about him self-evaluating himself, self-studying himself.
and then coming into this season with a big chip on his shoulder. And it showed, the things that were maybe in question or things that he needed to work on last year, he's definitely addressed those things, So again, with it starting with himself and him internalizing what he needs to fix, it makes my job even easier because it's not a fight. It's like, hey, I'm in the same fight, coach. I'm trying to correct the same things and gain the confidence of everybody here. And that's what he's been en route to doing. So been really impressed with Darwin. He'll continue to be a work in progress, but the guy's headed in the right direction for sure.
Let's go to Seren Petro. Go ahead, Seren.
Coach, thank you for the time. I'd like to go back to the question. I think it was Harold asked about the high school football. And, look, we know the process that goes on for your guys, right? They got a union that steps up for them, and, they got to come to an agreement, and they've got people that are standing up for them and protecting them and taking care of them. I'm just curious. You're in the middle of that, right? Watching as a coach and seeing both of them. But as a parent, you're on one side of it. How did compare and contrast, like how much information you saw being exchanged in the NFL and how much information you got from the high school level? I mean, because I'm sure it's similar at the college level as well. Were you at the school? Did they demonstrate? Did they have videos? Like what was some of the protocol that was done in compare and contrast high school to the NFL?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is, especially with me being back at work, a lot of those things, and my wife is the one who's now I'm not going up and seeing anything too much at this moment, but I'm briefed by her. And then obviously when I get home in the evenings, I talk to my sons about what are some of the things that's going on. And I know I listened in on the a live stream that they had on the board meeting the other night, and I felt, comfortable with what was going on there. So again, I put it in the hands of those guys, professional people. Strong community, definitely care for the students and the student athletes there. So I'm comfortable at this moment with the information that I have.
We've got time for a couple more guys. Let's go Pete and then finish with Darren. Go ahead, Pete.
Hey, Deland, I was curious, now that you've gotten an ability to get your hands on Clyde and had conversations with Eric Bieniemy and Coach Reed, in your own estimation, what do you think Clyde could mean for what the offense will be able to do as a whole?
I mean, he's going to come in there. He's going to do some great things for us. It's going to fit similar to the role what he did for the national champions last year. A guy that can run the ball at a high level, run with velocity, run with great feet, pad level, and power. An elusive guy in the open field. We'll have situations where he'll be able to use those skills in the open field, whether it be through screens or downfield routes, and he's shown that he can do those things. The big thing is mentally picking everything up. He's definitely en route to doing that. Feel very confident putting him out there with the first group at this moment. I mean, the guy's been he's been performing at a higher level mentally than what you would expect a rookie to do. So again, we're gonna continue working on things. We got stuff to work on like everybody do. But I feel confident by the time the season comes, this guy gonna be ready to roll.
Go to Darren for our last one. Go ahead, Darren.
Well, as far as Darwin understand, this is part of the business, and you continue to do things to raise the level of your team and create competition. So Darwin, just with his upbringing and his origins and just his mindset and personality, he embraced, being in the room and competing with the guys that's in there, regardless, first round, whatever. He knows always going to be competition there. So, in the things I already mentioned earlier, he's ready to take on that competition. As far as the conversations with me and Coach Bieniemy, it's evident with me. I'm the running back coach, so they're talking to me on the regular, for sure. Coach EB definitely, I know on the field, he'll provide a nugget or two as the guys are coming off the field and give them some words of wisdom also. But obviously, intimately with me as we go through film and look at things, and I'm giving reminders and other coaching points on how to raise their game to the next level. But
between me and Coach EB, we're gonna have these guys. And they're gonna be ready to roll for sure.
Coach McCullough, we appreciate the time today. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right, guys, hang tight, and we'll get Coach Daly down next. All right, guys, he's walking up to the podium now.
Right there. Yes, sir.
Hey, Coach, can you hear us okay?
I can, yeah.
All right, well, we're ready to get started. Let's go to Nate Taylor to start us off. Go ahead, Nate.
Hey, Coach Daly, good to see you.
How you doing, Nate?
Good, I'm doing well. For my two questions, the first one is, because you guys are practicing at such a fast tempo, because there are so many passing reps on offense, what can that do for a defensive line to get ready for the regular season without obviously having the preseason games as sort of a baseline? And then secondly, you've got a couple days now to see Taco within the mix of the defensive line. Just what have you noticed so far, and what are you maybe looking towards next as you get ready for his sort of debut with the Chiefs?
So to your first question, I love the way that we practice in terms of getting long drives and consecutive reps. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of throws in there as well. The conditioning element, the pursuit element, the progression in terms of getting ready to play a game is excellent in my opinion. And it forces guys to develop that, listen, you can go and run gassers and sprints and all those type of things all you want. It's great conditioning, but there's nothing like playing football. And the starting and the stopping and the leaning on each other and the driving and the change of direction. It's excellent. You can't, it's invaluable. You can't get better at it unless you do it. So I love the way we practice from that standpoint. Relative to Taco, been really pleased with him so far. It's been fun to get hands-on with him. Obviously the off-season program when we got him, very unique situation. You can only know someone so much through a computer screen, if you will. But it's been fun to be able to watch him. He's a very good athlete. He's got great length. He's got some natural ability. He's picking things up. He's making some mistakes, but he's working through it. I've liked his energy, his attitude, and his effort, and he's coming along.
Let's go to Vahe. Go ahead, Vahe.
Thanks, Brad. Hey, Brendan. To your point, you just mentioned about you can only get to know someone so much through a computer screen. You've had the benefit of being in having some continuity with the Patriots and now here. I wonder how much that benefits you now in the last year or so? And just overall, have you seen that is a big difference maker with coaching staffs?
Well, I think there's a common ground. I think, in terms of language, in terms of the amount of time you have to spend meeting to get on the same page with things probably is minimized. The reality of it is, though, you have to go through this process each and every year. Even when you've been together for a while, none of us have coached football since February. None of us have been on the practice field since February. So, there was some rust, to be quite honest, when you get back going for players and coaches. We've all got to go through it. And that's something that we continue to work through. We're going to go through the preseason without the opportunity to go on the field for a preseason game. And so some of the in-game mechanics we're trying to work through on the practice field and get our feet up underneath of us in that regard, because we're not going to have an opportunity to do it in those preseason games like you normally would. So I think every year brings its challenges. Yeah, personalities, you kind of have some common threads, but by the same token, we all need it. We all need to sharpen our skills and get back into our routine.
Let's go to Pete Sweeney. Go ahead, Pete.
Hi, Brendan. Thank you for taking the time. I have one rookie and one veteran question. What has surprised you most now that you've gotten an opportunity to work with Mike Dana? And then what has told the staff maybe Tano is ready for the next step in the system?
I'll take them in the order you gave me. So, Mike has done a really nice job, did a great job through our off-season stuff. And I was very impressed with the way he came to camp and the level of understanding with the material that we had gone through over the off-season program. He had a very good recall on that. Been impressed with his work ethic. He's getting better every day. He's been fun to be around for sure. Relative to Tano, very pleased with where he's at from a conditioning standpoint, from the way he approached the off-season work. And he's a physical specimen in a lot of ways, but he's in excellent physical conditioning. When you look at the guys who can go all day out there, he's, one of the first guys that comes to mind. And that's a credit to what he's done and what he did on his own in the time that he wasn't able to be here. I'm excited to see him perform. He's doing a nice job at this point. We're still early in the evaluation phase of this, but I see him getting better. I see him, starting to understand the game. It's slowing down a little bit for him. So I've got great expectations and I hope that he continues to progress.
Let's go to Seren Petra. Go ahead, Seren.
Coach, thank you for your time. Along the same lines, you talked about Tano being in great shape. Breland Speaks has talked about, the work he put in and going back to, it sounded like his junior high coach to get back working. He made the switch last year. Things, by all accounts, were going well, but then he missed the whole year. So what was his weight loss? Was that his motivation? Was that something the organization, you, Coach Reed, Spags said, hey, we want you to change your body type? And then what is your vision for him? Is, a lot of people thought maybe he was a D tackle and D end in college, of course, played linebacker here. So what is the vision for what he is? And if you have the number, how much weight did he lose?
Well, it's a great question. And I'd say we're still working through that. Breland did a tremendous job in terms of working through the off season. He got himself into great physical shape. I got to give him a lot of credit for what he did and the work that he put in. We'll see. He's played, as you guys know, he's played defensive tackle. He's played outside linebacker. He's played defensive end. We're going to evaluate guys and their skill set. And when they prove that they're capable of doing things well, our job as coaches is to put them in position to do those things. And the things that they don't do as well, good coaching would tell you, okay, well, let's minimize the number of times we ask them to do that. So with Breland specifically, he's worked at a number of different spots here as we've gotten back. That's one of the things I give him a lot of credit for. He's a football smart guy. He can handle multiple roles. He does a very good job of working at that side of things. We're still, like I mentioned, with all of these guys in an evaluation mode at this point in training camp. We've been, I don't know what it is, 4 or 5 days in pads. But I wouldn't say that sample size is big enough to make defining, positions and roles and things of that nature yet. We're still working through that. And he's done a nice job with the things that we've asked him to do. We'll see where it continues to go.
Looks like we've got time for 2 more questions. Let's go Vahe and then finish with Herbie. Go ahead, Vahe.
Glad Herbie's got the final one here. Hey, Brendan, sort of similar question before, but more specific to the coaches you're working with, Andy and Spags. How different is it this time around? I mean, how much more grounded are you? And again, what's the advantage in having all 3 coordinators are back, which is rare for a Super Bowl winning team?
Well, you're right. It is. And there's some familiarity, obviously, I know where to go when we go out to individual this year, as opposed to trying to figure it out last year, but you understand certain things and expectations that the head coach wants. And each head coach I've worked for is different in that regard. When you've been a lap around the track, so to speak, what are the things that, listen, this is what he wants. He doesn't need to ask me to handle that again. I understand what his expectations are. And so you feel comfortable and confident in taking some of those things on your own and off of him, to be honest. As an assistant coach, I've always looked at it as my responsibility to get out in front of any issues before the head coach has to deal with them. And so when you know their expectations and you know what they want, you can handle those things more appropriately. And I'd say that's kind of where we're at. I'd say the same thing with Spags. We've all worked together now for a year. We've got a little bit of, time on the job to where we can, avoid problems in a proactive manner before they become problems, if you will.
Let's go to Herbie to finish it off. Go ahead, Herbie.
Hey, Coach, I want to tap back into your time in New England. With the Patriots, you were in the same building, and you got to be around a guy in Tom Brady who is widely regarded as the face of the NFL. With that torch now being passed over to Patrick Mahomes, I'm curious, what similarities did you see in how Brady handled the spotlight and that responsibility of being the face of the NFL to how Patrick is handling it now?
Well, I'll say this. I've been honored and privileged, to be honest with you, to work with both individuals. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for both individuals. But I think they're individuals, and I'm not much into comparisons. I think they're both great players. I think they have a lot of similar characteristics. The one thing that would stand out to me is their competitive fire and the way they approach the game and the way that they bring energy each and every day to their teammates. But I got a tremendous amount of respect, and I'm happy and fortunate to have an opportunity to share the same field and be on the same team with them.
Coach Daly, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a great day, guys.
You too. All right, guys. That's it for us.